in 6 minutes starts now.
A Colorado man says he killed his wife because she killed their kids. I'm Chris Foster, Fox News. Chris Watts is accused of all 3 murders. The story now from Fox's Tanya J. Powers.
Watts is due in court today. He admits to killing his wife, Shannon, but he says he is not responsible for the deaths of their 2 girls. He says his wife killed them after learning that he wanted a separation. Frank Ruchek is Shannon's father, who's thanked friends and neighbors for organizing a candlelight vigil for her.
And keep the prayers coming for our family. Thank you very much.
Watts is facing 3 first-degree murder charges. He's being held without bail. Chris.
Tanya, Microsoft says a hacking group linked to the Russian government made websites to look like they belong to 2 conservative think tanks that promote democracy. The company says there's no evidence anybody actually clicked on the fake links. The Trump administration has a plan to weaken more federal environmental rules.
The acting administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency, Andrew Wheeler, signed a plan to weaken regulation of coal-fired power plants. The move comes just before President Trump heads to Charleston in the coal-producing state of West Virginia. The New York Times reports that at a rally, the president's expected to propose new rules that would let states decide whether or not they want to curb emissions from coal plants. Meanwhile, environmental groups like the Sierra Club call coal deadly and outdated. The Union for Concerned Scientists says when coal is burned, it releases airborne health hazards like lead and mercury. Jill Nato, Fox News.
Some prison inmates across the country are going on a 2-week strike starting today to protest what organizers call modern-day slavery, working for pennies per hour. The strike's called for by an advocacy group called Jailhouse Lawyers Speak. Participating inmates plan to not eat, skip work assignments, and hold peaceful sit-ins. Ahead of the opening bell on Wall Street, Dow futures are up 57 points. Fox News, fair and balanced.
It's the Ford Summer Sales Event. And now, while selection is best, it's the best time to buy. With amazing offers across a full lineup of Ford vehicles, now is the time to make summer go right with Ford, America's best-selling brand. Stop by a local Ford store or shop online at buyfordnow.com, because there is no better time than right now to get behind the wheel of a new Ford during the Ford Summer Sales Event. The Ford Summer Sales Event is here. Right now, get 0% APR financing for 60 months plus $1,000 bonus cash on the 2018 EcoSport. Best-selling claim based on 2017 calendar year sales. Not all buyers will qualify for Ford credit financing. 60 months at $1,667 per month for $1,000 finance regardless of down payment. For all offers, take new retail delivery from an authorized Ford dealer stock by 8/31/18. See dealer or go to buyfordnow.com for qualifications and details.
New Jersey is now leading the nation for policies in place to keep high school student athletes safe. The New Jersey State Interscholastic Athletic Association says another mandate is in the works to require schools bring on tools to measure heat stress during practice.
And then based off a huge chart that's now on our website, you can tell whether it's safe to practice or whether you have to move practice to a different location or create more water breaks.
New Jersey scores perfectly for policies addressing sudden cardiac arrest. Microsoft says it's discovered new Russian hacking attempts targeting U.S. political groups. This comes ahead of the midterm elections. There's no sign the hackers were successful in getting anybody to click on their sites. With the pageant set to begin in weeks, all is not well in Miss America land. Several past title holders rallying behind current Miss America, Cara Mund, after she accused former winner and current CEO Gretchen Carlson of bullying and trying to silence her. Carlson fired back, denying the allegation, claiming Mund's allegations cost the pageant $75,000 in scholarship money. I'm Eric Scott. This is the Town Square News Network.
The daytime hours today read very similar to yesterday. Partly to mostly cloudy skies. High temperatures in the upper 70s to around 80. That's still on the cool side of normal. We could see a shower pop up this afternoon, especially to the south and west as a warm front approaches. The better chance for getting wet will be tonight, with scattered showers and thunderstorms spreading across the state. Lows fall to around 70. That rain wraps up tomorrow morning. There could be a shower or thunderstorm tomorrow afternoon as well. Highs tomorrow mid-80s, clearing away to sunshine on Thursday with highs upper 70s to around 80. I'm meteorologist Dan Zero.
From Harry Hurley Way in the world's playground to the broadcast pioneers of Philadelphia Hall of Fame.
I want to congratulate my friend, Harry Hurley.
You're about to find out why Harry Hurley has been named to the Talkers Magazine list of the 100 most important talk show hosts in the nation. Live from the studios of Town Square Media in Northfield, It's Hurley in the Morning on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
Thank you very much. 5 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to Hurley in the Morning. Chuck Malamut is here, and this program is sponsored by Chuck Malamut, a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of Chuck Malamut and do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of this broadcast, subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, member SIPC. Chuck Malamut, if today is copacetic and tomorrow is not anything radical, we will have achieved the longest bull market in American history.
Good morning, Harry. Good morning, Kirk. So,
isn't that exciting?
The longest bull market for the S&P since 1950.
It's 9 years.
Lasted 3,452 calendar days. 9.5 years, and that was from October 11th, 1990 to March 24th, 2000.
And this would be 2009
through tomorrow, the next day. Yeah. So
Wednesday.
it's and you think about, within the bull market that we've had, like what necessitates, or creates a bear market, and it's when you have those corrections of 20+%. And you think about the number of times that we had multiple corrections throughout this long-standing rally. I mean, the fat finger, for instance, if you remember that, literally you walk in one day and the market is down. You're pointing at me. My fingers aren't fat.
No. I actually you brought back something that was hilarious to me when that was called the fat finger correction. It just absolutely just tickles me for some reason. But this is, you think about it, this is unprecedented. It will be the longest in our entire history. It's pretty amazing. And is it the Rodney Dangerfield?
Well, absolutely. It is. This is the most disrespected rally that we've seen, and every day, even today and yesterday and tomorrow. There's so many reasons why the strategist, not the strategist, or the journalist, the fake, what you guys oftentimes refer to as the fake news.
Well, because they are.
Oftentimes says the reasons that you should not, be in stocks. And the bottom line is, and we've talked about this, for a long time. It's a matter of just the proper asset allocation, and typically in a bull market that doesn't have these corrections that go on for months. We are oftentimes questioned by our clients, how come my return is not in line with the S&P 500? And our comment is, well, quite frankly, we build a portfolio based on risk tolerance, asset allocation, goals, and dreams, and ultimately, you can't build a house without having a sound foundation, and that's where I think oftentimes investors, get confused with respect to, well, I should be all in and have 100% of my money in equities. I mean, think about, if you decided at the end of last year that not only were you going to buy equities, but you wanted to buy emerging markets. Well, that wouldn't be a real good conversation right now, because, emerging markets are down, 10% as of yesterday, year to date. The Shanghai Stock Exchange is down about 22%. So, but in the meantime, conversely, S&P is up about 8, the Nasdaq's up 14, the Dow Jones up about 5.5. We're seeing a little bit of a disconnect here. We had that firing on all cylinders, a really, really strong global economy, and we sort of in this year, 2018, have pulled away. That being the U.S. as more of a dominant force versus some of the other markets. Even the more mature European markets. The German DAX is down 10%. The FTSE's down 4%. When you look at the MSCI EFA, down about 4%. So that's why it's very important that you have a diversified portfolio, because you never know where to be and when to be there.
And of course, I mean, the converse is true. If you did something like 100% in on something at a time where it was not performing as well, then that would be really reckless on your part. So it's kind of, you can't win the lose.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to. I don't want to talk about an individual company, but I think we'll go ahead and we'll raise the case here and we'll talk about Tesla for a second, only because it's rumors and speculation that oftentimes drive securities. And if you take a look at the tweet that Elon Musk sent out a couple weeks ago, secured financing going private, $420 a share. I mean, the stock rocketed. It was up about 8 or 10% in a moment's notice, and now 2 weeks later, under investigation, maybe losing his spot. The company maybe is not what everyone thought the company is supposed to be, or has represented itself to be. So that's why in our world it's just very, very important that you try to stay laser focused and diversified.
Now, of course, it matters who you are, but you take somebody like that in 40 characters. Look what he did.
Well, look at what Yeah, but take a look at what happens, with our president, for instance. I mean, with a tweet or multiple tweets in a relatively short period of time, he can drive, the market.
Sure.
Right, wrong, or indifferent. So I think the one thing that we try to encourage our clients to one, remain focused, and two, this is a long term. We oftentimes refer to this as a marathon. And think about it, you couldn't run a sprint for 9.5 years.
No.
But you can run a marathon. And, for those that have participated and stayed the course and didn't, necessarily veer off, and there were a lot of opportunities to veer off. I mean, you think about the number of times where, the market corrects, 8, 10, 12%, and then all of a sudden, the market has come back. Now, I think what you guys talked about a little bit in the last hour was, what's happening with the conversation or the tweet the comment that the president made with respect to the Fed and short-term interest rates.
I'm glad he did it. I know that's not what presidents usually do, but I'm glad he did it.
So the key.
Notice I was saying that too.
Yeah, you were, and Kirk was saying as well. And I think that there are a lot of encouraging signs, obviously, with respect to the economy. I mean, we'll get into this in a few minutes, but the fact of the matter is that, if you get these sound bites or these tweets, and as an individual investor, it's very, very hard to be able to react to those, because the big money flows, and it flows very, very quickly in and out of securities. I mean, and if you take a company that misses its mark, and we oftentimes refer to it, you get taken out to the woodshed, and it doesn't really matter, what sector you're in and what you do as a company. But if you miss your number, or if the projections you make are not what the analysts' expectations are, next tick on the stock, you can be down 5, 8, 10%. So that's why, we try to encourage, our clients and prospective clients that, to try to stay long-term focused and try to, keep all of the new. It's kind of like I oftentimes view it as background music. You try to ignore all that, because if you try to develop a portfolio based on the news and rumors and what allegedly is going to happen, the chances are you're going to lose your money.
First break, Chuck. We're going to come back strong. Chuck will finish his market update, and then we'll travel through trade issues, inflation, corporate earnings, capital spending, midterm elections, Trump in the stock market, if there's any more on that. Chuck mentioned the president in the stock market, American productivity, decreasing U.S. Treasury debt. Is it a good time to buy a house? I say yes. We'll see what Chuck says. More jobs than workers. How about that? Really big states, U.S. debt rating. And Chuck will end with great time to be a politician. I can't wait for the epilogue. We'll be back in 2.5 minutes.
Celebrate our 40th anniversary all summer at Resorts Casino Hotel, home to Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville and Landshark Bar and Grill. Come for specials, live entertainment, free concerts on Landshark Beach, and 6 daily happy hours. Visit award-winning gourmet dining, Capriccio's, and Gallagher's Steakhouse. For new members, get 3 times comp dollars and 3 times cash back, plus a free 40th anniversary tote. Learn about our summer-long celebration and book your stay at resortsac.com. A Mohegan Sun property. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
At Shore Medical Center, they go to extraordinary lengths to deliver the highest quality of care in a safe and compassionate environment. They are pleased to provide 6 centers of excellence specializing in cancer, cardiovascular, neurological, orthopedic, emergency, maternity, and pediatric health care. To find a doctor, schedule an appointment, or find more information on the many excellent services Shore Medical Center provides, visit shoremedicalcenter.org.
Congratulations to Shore Medical Center for being the only hospital in Atlantic and Cape May counties to earn an A rating for quality and safety by Leapfrog Group for spring 2018. This is the 8th consecutive rating period in which Shore has earned this prestigious honor. Shore is proud of its physicians, nurses, and support staff who continue to provide the highest quality of care to the patients in our community. Find out more at shoremedicalcenter.org. Shore Medical Center, healthcare at its best.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. But not with ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. Its powerful technology actively invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So, while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you, the needle in the haystack.
Try ZipRecruiter now for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Hey, listen up and pay attention. It's Jimmy here with a very profound message. What you need to do is buy a Zeepa. Nobody wants to hear you snoring all the time. That's ZYPPAH.com. You're sleeping next to somebody and you know you're snoring and you're not doing anything about it? That's disrespect. So what you gotta do is get a Zeepa at ZYPPAH.com. That's ZYPPAH.com. Zeepa.com. Happy Z spelled backwards.
WPG Talk Radio 104.1 is your radio home for the 2018 Atlantic City Air Show, Thunder Over the Boardwalk. Join us Wednesday, August 22nd for our live coverage, anchored by Harry Hurley. Brought to you by
co-banner presenting sponsors, Senator Jeff Van Drew for United States Congress, Dr. Harvey Kesselman in Stockton University, along with Mark Giantonio in Resorts Casino Hotel Atlantic City Electric, Ron Johnson in the Shore Medical Center, Vince Palestina and Associates, Morgan Stanley's Chuck Malamut, Jim Wood and Meet AC, Jim Malamut and Green Tree Mortgage, State Senator Chris Brown, the D'Amato Law Firm, Charles and Anne-Marie Keynes, the Auto Plaza at English Creek, and Kirk and Nancy Conivers, the Shore Agency. Along with Frank Ballas for Egg Harbor Township Committee and Summers Point City Councilman James Toto. We thank them because we're going to be doing gavel to gavel, 8 a.m. to probably a bit beyond 4 p.m. As soon as the Thunderbirds finish, we'll do a quick wrap-up, 5-minute or so wrap-up, and away we go. But it will be an 8-hour-plus uninterrupted broadcast. And let me tell you the latest, because we're checking hourly. We are checking the hourly weather through the event. Scattered thunderstorms begin tomorrow in the 7 o'clock hour, 40% chance, 45% chance at 8, 40% chance at 9, then at 10 o'clock, 20% chance. By 11 o'clock, when the airspace is closed, there's only a 5% chance of rain. It will be 82 degrees and sunny. So I'm hoping that people that were planning on coming to the air show don't get discouraged when you hear forecasts that are not telling you what it's going to be doing hour by hour. 12 noon hour, sunny. 1 o'clock hour, mostly sunny. 2 o'clock hour, mostly sunny. 3 o'clock hour, partly cloudy. 4 o'clock hour, partly cloudy. And then by dinner time, almost 0% chance to 5% chance of rain. So, Chuck Malamut, thank you for your sponsorship. You've been doing it for years, and also the weather has improved.
You're welcome, Harry. Wish I could spend the day with you, but unfortunately...
Well, you got a lot of people counting on you in this country. Half the people don't pay taxes, so you can't be at the air show. You got to work.
I could be there.
You could, yeah, you could.
I can work remotely.
Yeah, that's true.
Might be a little challenging. Might be a little noisy there.
We have Wi-Fi. I'll get you a pair of headsets. You'll be covered. Come on. Join me at Show Center, across from Boardwalk Hall, catty corner on the Ventnor side at the end of Boardwalk Hall. your market update
Yeah,
continues.
so I think about last week, we're now clearly in the dog days of summer in August, and it's just going to get even more quiet next week than it is this week than it was last week. But it was all about Turkey last week. It was all about the lira, basically selling off. Investors were also looking at some weakness that was coming out of China. So that created basically a risk off.
China is not having a good time right now, are they?
No, China's not having a hard time. It's evidenced in their particular stock market. The Shanghai Stock Exchange Composite year to date is down 22%, of which 25% or 5% was attributed to the loss last week. So virtually one quarter of the loss was in 1 week alone. But
do you think their economy could bring them to the point where they do a trade deal with America?
Would
that be an amazing art of the deal if that goes down?
If you look at, and we'll talk about this in a second, that the direction that we're taking, and like it or not, and I think the president gets criticized oftentimes as not being terribly intelligent. But the bottom line at the end of the day, I think that what is taking place now. If we as investors can live through, the short-term gyrations, within the market, and I think ultimately we should end up with a good outcome. But if you look at U.S. equities, and I'll just finish this in a second here. The improvements within the trade front, helped our markets. The S&P was up 0.7% for the week. Defensive areas, industrials, financials, basically led the way. The commodity-oriented companies, and again, a lot of that has to do with the EM, the emerging markets. Turkey sell-off, those particular companies did not do very well. Consumer discretionary and technology lagged, and I don't want to take that technology lag, lightly, because I think what we're seeing here is a shift. And oftentimes it happens where money moves from one sector to another. For the last 10 years, growth predominantly beat value, and significantly. Now what is happening, we're starting to see some money shift out of growth into value the dividend pays. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Now, with respect to trade, it seems as if things are improving here on the margin, but we expect the issue is probably going to linger. President Trump last month sealed the agreements on NAFTA and with the EU, likely to gain some traction on a harder line with China. Chinese officials are due to travel here to our country for the next set of negotiations later this month. But I think, Harry, the one thing we have to recognize here is, not to, read too much into this as being a terribly overly optimistic sign. We do expect, trade issues to surface and maybe even escalate, which would not be good for the equity markets, and see some hope of significantly easing tensions this year. But what I found out to be very, very interesting is what's happening is that there are 6 days of hearings are now scheduled over the coming week for U.S. companies to present their views on the next round of these Chinese tariffs that's going to cover about $200 billion of goods. Originally, there were only 3 days of public comment were organized, but the U.S. Trade Representative's Office had to double the number to meet the overwhelming demand. You think about it, Harry, all these companies want to basically get out in front of this and discuss, the implications of what these, what the tariffs could very well mean. Following the hearings, the tariffs are scheduled to go in effect in late September. As you know, there were $16 billion worth of Chinese goods that are going to take effect, this week. So, as I mentioned, U.S. and China are going to restart their conversations. And hopefully there'll be some sort of de-escalation with respect to the tariffs. But that's anybody's guess as to where we go from there.
Chuck, has inflation returned?
I know that you and Kirk kind of talked about that, in the last hour, that inflation really isn't out there. But, as economic growth does, in fact, accelerate, inflation pressures are starting to mount. We think prices and wages are going to continue to rise somewhat marginally as we get into 2019. So I think it's something that we really haven't paid much attention to because we haven't had any inflation. But if these wage increases do, in fact, happen, and the economy continues to grow, don't be surprised if inflation, rears its ugly head here in some way, shape, or form.
And tell people what typically happens when we have inflation.
Well, there's an. I mean, Kirk's over here laughing. I'd say I got the peanut gallery. No, that's not very nice to say. I mean, we've had these discussions, many times, and does the Fed, oftentimes what ends the bull market is a very, very, very overly aggressive Fed.
Thank you.
But
you have a fever today? TC fly bite?
No, I'm fine. I mean, I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything that we haven't talked about before. I think where you and I might disagree a little bit is the timing of the Fed rate hikes. So, I mean, I know that
I love your consistency, Chuck. I love you so much. We're going to see what's going to happen, I hope. But so, has inflation returned?
Well, I think it has. The problem is when you take food and energy out, and quite frankly,
because nobody eats and nobody wants to be. Everyone wants to be in the dark. It makes a lot of sense.
And when you look at the price of fuel, I mean, it was, or the price at the pump was consistently increasing through the summer until about 10 days ago when oil was, somewhat sold off.
Oil's coming down, right?
It has, yeah. So I think what's happening is that, the price to the consumer, and you go to the store and you buy food, it's more expensive than it was 3 years ago.
Right.
So I don't care what you're buying, and the fact of the matter is food and energy obviously has to be included.
And then the trucks that move, I mean, if their energy costs are more expensive, they pass it on to the consumer.
Well, I think the bottom line is there is some inflation. I think it's not rampant. It certainly is not what we're seeing in Venezuela by any way, shape, or form. But I think it's something that we need to be, somewhat focused on because don't be at all surprised if the price of goods and services increases, especially if these tariffs take hold. Think about the costs. And ultimately, that gets passed to the consumer, and as a result of that, you have higher inflation.
Let's talk about the corporate earnings for the remainder of this year, Chuck.
So, as you know, first and second quarter, these corporations basically hit the ball out of the park. I mean, it was just amazing. It's we think that
very high percentage of everybody meeting both top and bottom line.
beating. What we found in the second quarter in particular was a company, where a company got beat up was when they met their numbers, but their projections into Q3 and 4, were a little shy of expectations. So we think what's going to happen is that the environment that we're living through right now might be a little more difficult than we had in the first two quarters. So think about it: trade concerns we just talked about, increased margin pressures, higher commodity prices that we just kind of chatted about, rising wages. I mean, all of that could put some downward pressure with respect to potential earnings as we get into the third and fourth quarter of this year.
We're going to take our halftime break. When we come back, Chuck will talk about capital spending and much more as Chuck Malamut continues a discussion all about your financial matters. To reach Chuck for your financial planning needs, 609-383-2010, and you will become a part of the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office by choosing Chuck and his wonderful team for all of your financial planning needs. 609-383-2010. That's the phone number. And here's where I'll be tomorrow, all morning, all day.
Are you ready? The 2018 Atlantic City Air Show, Thunder Over the Boardwalk, is coming Wednesday, August 22nd. And the only place to catch all of the action is on WPG Talk Radio 104.1 FM and 1450 AM. And if you'll be at the show, download the WPG Talk Radio app for your iPhone or Droid and listen to all of the action live from South Jersey's high-flying talk station, WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
We're celebrating summer at Rossi Honda with loads of savings during the Honda Summer Spectacular event. Beat the heat with cool deals like these. Lease a 2018 Honda Accord LX 1.5 for just $159 a month. Or lease a 2018 Honda HR-V LX for just $149 a month. Enjoy summer in a new CR-V LX for just $199 a month. Head to the Honda Summer Spectacular event today. It's where summer fun begins. Going on now at Rossi Honda. Check out more deals at RossiHonda.com.
See dealer for details. WPG Talk Radio 104.1 has teamed up with Rossi Honda on South Chelsea Drive in Vineland to bring you the Teen Safe Driving Program. As parents, we need to instruct our teens how to handle emergencies, remind them not to text while driving, and never drink and drive. Bring your teen's car into Rossi Honda for a free safety check, no matter what the type or where they bought it. Or have them come in for a free safety class where they'll learn how to change a flat tire, what to do about a dead battery, or what to do when they run out of gas. Call Rossi Honda for an appointment.
What? Oh, honey. Honey. Jeff, wake up! Roll over!
Your sleep and your relationship are suffering, but they don't have to.
Is your snoring driving your spouse crazy? Do you hate your CPAP? Hi, I'm Dr. Gregory D. Felice, and I have an alternative for you. I have sleep apnea and used to snore like a freight train. I cured it with a comfortable oral appliance without surgery, medication, or CPAP. Come see me and I can help you stop snoring and get rid of your CPAP and regain the energy that you've been missing for so long. In most cases, they're covered by PPO medical insurance and you only need to see me a couple of times. So what are you waiting for? Schedule a free consultation today.
Find out why people from the bridges to the beaches are coming to see Dr. D. Felice. With offices in Hamilton, Manahawkin, and Cape May Courthouse, he is conveniently located to serve you. Visit HamiltonBraces.com to set up your free consultation and start sleeping better because you deserve it.
At CarMax, when we say we buy all the cars, we mean it. Over the last 20 years, we've purchased millions of cars from coast to coast. In the last year alone, we've bought a mountain of Mercurys, an armada of Nissans, a ton of Titans, an ocean of Pacificas, and a sea of Siennas. Not to mention a few Hellcats and a couple of Tornadoes. So no matter what you're selling, CarMax is buying. And we'll buy your car even if you don't buy ours. CarMax. We buy all the cars.
Hi, it's Mark Levin. Join me at 6 this evening. Now back to the Mayor of the Morning, Harry Hurley, on WPG Talk Radio 104.1, South Jersey's talk station.
We're back. Chuck Malamut is here. It's 33 minutes past the hour. Capital spending. Chuck.
So what we're seeing with all the tax cuts and the corporations, basically having, more capital, more money to spend, the second quarter saw another increase in spending. Actually, capital expenditures increased by 17% year over year, with technology, leading the way. So although trade concerns have not yet weighed in on CapEx levels, the policy uncertainty that could negatively, impact future planning. We're still seeing, companies out there, raising the bar, spending more money, improving their facilities, hiring more workers. So the economy, like it or not, I know that you guys are fans. We're all fans. I mean, The economy is certainly in a lot better place than we've been over the last, 2 years. And kind of put in perspective, from the time President Trump was elected, around 400 trading days, about 19 months from his inauguration date, the S&P's gained just shy of 29% total return, and that's inclusive of dividends. So, you think about, what has happened here is that, just I don't want to call it the mindset of companies, the mindset of large corporations, the mindset of small businesses, the mindset of us as individuals. Chances are we're more likely to spend than than certainly we were, say, just 3 years ago. 3 years ago, it was like, you're just looking to quote, survive.
You didn't know if you were going to have a job, and there was no confidence, consumer confidence. So consumer confidence is big time a part of this discussion.
Oh, absolutely, because without consumer confidence, it goes back. Remember the three-legged stool we oftentimes talk about. The consumer is part of that.
I've been waiting for this part of your show, Chuck, the midterm elections.
So
this makes me happy. Thank you for this crumb.
I know. So I think we'll probably. Well, I'm trying to recall.
Can I just take a guess? Could I take a guess?
Go ahead.
All the financial geniuses that wanted Hillary to be president, they all did. They all did, and they all said it was going to happen. Please tell me they don't want the Democrats to take over the House.
So
you should see Chuck's face.
No, so the guesstimate at this point in time, the forecast
here they go,
is that the Republicans are going to keep control of the House.
No, of the House.
The House,
wow.
Yeah, but they're going to likely lose the Senate.
Oh, they're dead wrong on that.
So, however,
there's no chance to lose.
However,
the Senate.
A full Democratic sweep of Congress is increasingly looking like it could be a possibility. I mean, I know that you guys were on a rant last hour about having running mates and who the Republicans put up versus the Democrats. But now the one thing to remember, if in fact that happens, I think the big concern is that tighter regulatory environment. Think about what has transpired over the last couple of years. Potentially a rollback of the recent of the tax cuts, so that those two issues could obviously have a negative impact on equities. Higher minimum wage, drug price controls, and additional protectionists with respect to trade practices.
Are the tax cuts due to sunset at a certain point?
Well, they do, and I think it's like 4 years.
That would be the only time. There's no way they would have enough votes to overturn.
Well,
the tax cuts. But let me ask you this.
Well, think about this for a second. If the Democrats win both sides, if they control the House and the Senate, then
then
they could.
They would pass it. But it would go to the president.
It would get vetoed.
It would get vetoed, and they would not have the
two-thirds
that they need. But let me ask you this, though, because there's not a serious – I'm not saying financial, but a serious analyst out there that says Democrats will win the Senate and the Republicans will keep the House. Almost everybody says the Democrats have no chance to get the Senate, and they're probably favored to win the House. I wonder if this market research is backwards.
I'll go back and investigate it, but we get pretty reliable sources.
Yeah, but nobody is saying that.
The good news is this is only August, and we still have several months to right the ship. I mean, in a perfect world, everything remains as is.
I'm going to say the Senate, the Republicans actually pick up 2 to 3 seats in the Senate. Should be more, but it won't be because they did some stupid things. And I think the Democrats, if the election were right now, would have 222 seats, which would give them by 4 seats the majority. You need 218 to win the House. But in any event, so the midterm elections.
More to come on that. So,
and the key is this. It's an equally divided Senate, almost, barely in Republican majority, with one senator ailing. You're basically at 50-49, and it's almost equally divided. And the House is going to be very, very close. But the difference will be anything that's in place can't really be meddled with because there won't be the votes to overturn the president's veto. What will be interesting, though, all spending measures originate in the House. Should the Democrats win the House, Chuck, that will change a lot of things.
Yeah, and that's I think the concern that all of us have is that the average person in this country are certainly not tuned in to what happens on a day-to-day basis, and they oftentimes rely on headlines. They oftentimes rely on the internet.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, some of that news that comes across is not, it's fake and could sway the way they vote.
Chuck, you touched on Trump and the stock market. Did you say all that you wanted to say?
We did, yeah. We kind of covered that.
So we'll go on from there, but it's been an extraordinary. When you said 29% over the year and a half of the new president, that's pretty amazing. How about American productivity?
Yeah, so we kind of touched on this just a few minutes ago. The average American has increased their productivity by 100% in the last 40 years.
Wow!
So you think about that. So
wow!
So we can now complete a task in an hour that used to take over 2 hours to complete, and that was from 1977. That doesn't seem 1977 doesn't seem that long ago.
Is this technology?
Yeah. I mean, take a look at automobiles, for instance. The technology has taken place in one building, producing and running a car, and just kind of use that and roll that through.
And even American parts that are assembled somewhere else, and you have all these different things going on.
So it's the technology push. Helps productivity. Ultimately drives stock prices, ultimately drives higher net worth. Which
brings us to decreasing U.S. Treasury
debt.
So
your favorite friend, Janet Yellen.
Yes.
I remember you used to rail on that poor lady.
Yeah.
She used to listen to you and said, oh, my goodness, Harry's at it again. But
she said, I want to leave.
But you think about it, think about what is happening here. The Treasury debt, including mortgage-backed securities that the Fed was holding on their balance sheet, beginning of this month, August 2018, was 4.04 trillion, down from 4.24 trillion a year ago. So remember, what she put in place was that $200 billion reduction that basically was outlined back in September 2017. It started the following month, October 2017. That involved $10 billion of bonds maturing each month without reinvesting the principal. So that monthly amount is going to increase to $10 billion a quarter before peaking at $50 billion per month in October of this year. So remember, the market, did take some of a hiccup at that point in time because they're saying like that sugar high.
Yeah.
With the Fed, with the QEs 1 through whatever, weren't being pumped. The money was being pumped into the economy. Fact of the matter is, done a relatively good job with the Fed, reducing the balance sheet, and I think that's good news. The Fed needs to reduce its balance sheet.
I think it's good news too. I just hope they don't do political things. Chuck, you often talk, and you did earlier in general terms, about the 3 legs of the stool. One of them clearly is real estate. Is it a good time to buy a house?
Well, up until about, a month ago, Americans were very, very, optimistic with respect to buying homes. But what happened in July of this year, 65% of Americans surveyed think it's a good time to buy a house. However, that number was as high as 83% in December 2014, so 4 years ago.
I'm surprised.
And it hasn't been as low as 65%.
Doesn't that almost make no sense? That doesn't seem to jive because the economy wasn't good in 2014. There wasn't optimism. Job market wasn't solid. I'm surprised.
The economy was getting better.
It was getting better.
And rates were lower.
That's true.
And so now what is happening, and I just, you can't buy a home in San Francisco. I mean, it's impossible. I mean, it's terribly overpriced. Bidder wars, cash buyers, once a house gets listed. So I think what is happening now, some of these prices, might be a little bit high. And it's a little more not difficult. You can still obtain financing, but it's just more expensive. So I think the combination of all of that, and we haven't really witnessed that here in this area, but
relatively speaking, aren't we really talking about still very attractive low rates?
Well, sure. And look, if you didn't know that 83% of the population was really excited about buying a house several years ago, you would tell me that, hey, there's nothing wrong with 65%. And there still is nothing wrong with that number.
And until you said that, I wouldn't have thought that in 2014. So that was it's interesting how the truth, when you hear it 4 years later, sounds like fiction. Because I don't.
Well, yeah, because I remember the new norm.
I remember it well. I wrote about it. I've written several thousand words on that topic. This is another one I like. So let's play Basic Math starring Chuck Malamut, the official financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program for 27 years. there's 7 million jobs and about 6 million people that want a job. And so this means more jobs than there are people that want jobs. What does that mean?
So what happened in June of 2018, there were 5.5 million Americans that had their employment end. And that was either by quitting, being laid off, getting discharged from work. In June of 2018, there were 5.65 million Americans that were hired into new jobs. So you separate the ones that were hired from the ones that were, had their employment terminated. We still have 6.66 million. That's an awful number. So
What was the day when it was 666?
It was March 9th, 2009, I believe.
Yeah, Chuck always has that date.
So 6.6 million job openings that are currently available that have to be filled, and that's the second highest monthly total ever. So, you think about there's just if you want to be gainfully employed, you can be gainfully employed.
Right.
It's just a matter. It might not be the job of choice,
but there's employment.
But there is employment.
Which really switches the paradigm to advantage employee, doesn't it? A bit.
Well, what's happening is that often it's still corporate. A lot of companies, large corporations, small companies, they're doing their best to retain their quality employees, but in the meantime, they don't want to necessarily increase wages. So what is happening now is the movement of jobs, like move from company A to company B, is how you're going to increase your wages.
Now, during the second break, Captain Kirk and I passed the really big states
You
test.
did, yeah. So let me throw it out there. I
like this.
You think about it. We oftentimes think about, the 40, the states that we can get our arms around. Actually, our President Obama said we had 57 states.
You're speaking of contiguous states.
Yes.
Yes.
So actually, I think there's a little bit less than that. Last time I checked my math, but
yeah.
So Alaska,
slightly.
I find this. Most people really don't pay much attention. Alaska is the largest state by acreage. 17.4% of the land of our country is concentrated in Alaska. So if you take, for instance,
that collusion with Russia?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So think
I don't want to bring that into Chuck's show, but that was a purchase from Russia. Seward's Folly. I'm sorry. Bill Dusty, if you're listening, thank you for teaching me so well. I still remember all that.
So Alaska is 424 million acres.
Yeah.
So that's large.
One of my favorite shows, and people who don't know me would not necessarily think this would be what I would do, and it's on for maybe, 16 weeks a year or something like that. Alaska, the Last Frontier.
Yeah, so
I love it.
So think about.
I can see you're moved by that. But
yeah, I am, because I got to get through all this. So
we're gonna get done.
So
don't worry.
The three largest states, Texas, California, and Montana, combined are not as large. They're not cover as much acreage as Alaska. The three states combined. Yeah, I just find that remarkable. And you think about, a lot of the acreage is uninhabitable because of weather, but it's still pretty remarkable that Alaska is as big as it is.
And so it's incredible. And like I told you, I like this show, Alaska, the Last Frontier, and the conditions that people live in. That is, Kirk talks about rugged individualism. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
I
remember years ago there was a sort of a 4, 5, 6 episode documentary covering high school football. And it was focused on a team in Alaska. And
I remember that.
It was just...
Yeah.
It was remarkable. They would travel...
Their commitment was incredible.
They had to travel like 8 hours to get to the next school.
On crazy planes and stuff.
Yeah, and it's just, in their whole lifestyle. It's obviously very rugged. I'm not quite certain I would move there, but
I like watching it. But
Harry, if you have the internet, you can do your show from there.
There you go.
That's all that matters.
We can do it from everywhere. U.S. debt rating.
Yeah, so you remember another item that basically sort of derailed the equity market several years ago was when our debt was being downgraded from AAA. And believe it or not, there are still 10 countries in this world right now that maintain that top credit rating. Canada, Germany, and Sweden are three of the larger countries that have the AAA rating. Now, I throw this out there. Would you rather buy U.S. debt or would you rather buy debt from Sweden?
I was just going to say to you, Chuck, that's where statistics don't tell the real story, because everybody would choose the full faith and credit of America over some AAA rated.
Well, the other thing to remember is, you had to remember volume and size.
Yeah,
if you accumulate, on your books, debt from a particular country, and not to confuse America, but take a look at what's happened with Turkey. Take a look at what's happened with Venezuela. I mean, that didn't happen overnight. You're not going to go from AAA to junk.
No.
But I do agree with you that I'd rather own our debt than somebody else's debt.
We don't have time to get into why it happened. There was a borrowing gambit that supposedly would have allowed us to keep the AAA rating, if I remember correctly. But I don't think that was the right thing to do. So sometimes doing the right thing leads to a downgrade that you would prefer not happen. But something cannot be disputed, even if anyone disputes that comment, which I don't think is disputable, is the fact we've never defaulted in the history of. Somebody was just waving to me. Chuck's waving back to me. So Susie was just waving.
I kind of figured that
yes.
out, Harry.
Chuck's waving to me, Susie. So do you agree with that? Even though we had the downgrade, wasn't there a borrowing thing that Republicans wouldn't do?
I don't remember the what led us to that downgrade, but what I do remember is the fact that the markets took more than a hiccup.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's one of those phenomena that sell first and ask questions later, and that oftentimes happens within the equity market.
Now, Chuck, I thought this was a typo, but you have a agenda item that we're going to close with, and we're on overtime. Great time to be a politician.
Yeah, so
was that for me? Is that a gift?
I think it's for you, and maybe you and Kirk and all those wannabes out there. And
wannabes?
No, all those wannabes out there. You missing? See, you didn't hear what I said. Kirk is a retired, successfully retired politician that doesn't want to go back. At least I don't think.
No.
I know that you oftentimes had aspirations, in your younger days, but I think you have. Since your school board days in Ventnor, you've decided, no, this is probably not for me. But for those that want to be a politician or are a politician, right now, the August recess has been reduced to a week.
Thank you, Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, but senators will still have 13 weeks of vacation. Yeah. During calendar year 2018, so 3 months, they get a free pass.
Let me ask you a question about that, because that's what everybody says and what everybody believes. But who made the rules that if they're not in session, they're on vacation? See, I don't agree with that. Do you know how many of them I can promise you do not take anything near 13 weeks, and just because they're not in session, they're working in the district?
Oftentimes they do, but
it counts as vacation in people's minds, and I don't agree with that.
So
I'm defending. It's rare. I'm defending the elected officials that get grief when they're not in Washington. Then they get grief that they're only in Washington, and presidents that get grief if they're somewhere else, as though they're not still like you said. I could do my show from Alaska. Would I be on vacation? If I'm working from Foxwoods or Mohegan Sun or from resorts or wherever, I'm not on vacation. I just happen to not be at Broadcast Center. The knee-jerk reaction is when the president is not at the White House. I'll give you an example. They used to say, whoever the president was, they're at the summer White House. Now they say Trump is at his golf course for the weekend.
Right.
It's not,
now
that's
whether or not he's
he's brought world leaders there.
he's in comparison to other presidents, he's an animal. I mean,
yes.
in a good way. I mean, the way he
I know how you mean that.
with his work habits.
Yeah, he doesn't sleep.
You go to his predecessor who
got in late and left early. Right. It's true.
He's very busy doing things that weren't terribly important.
And got great credit. But my point is, I don't know if you agree with me or disagree. I don't believe the president has to be at the White House to be considered working. And our media pounds our elected officials that if they're somewhere else as though they're not working. Now, I will admit, senators and members of the House, they can't vote on legislation if they're not in Washington. The president has it a bit easier there because he can do his job from anywhere.
I think, Harry, look, for those that are elected officials that have had many, many years, with either in the House or the Senate, it gets easier for them than a newcomer. And as a result, I don't believe they have to work as hard in getting out to the public. And they have a tendency to maybe, I don't want to use the word slacker. I don't think that's very fair, but I think they have a tendency to maybe vacation a little bit more than a
or at least the perception.
newly elected official.
That's a fair comment. Very fair comment. Chuck, thank you.
Good luck tomorrow, Harry.
Thank you, Chuck. Thanks for your support. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, brought to you by Atlanticare, a member of Geisinger.
When you have joint pain, one of the last things you might feel like doing is moving. But just like the Tin Man and the Wizard of Oz, inactivity can cause our joints to stiffen even more. The right kind of movement for your specific needs can improve joint stability and muscle strength, which can reduce the need for pain medications. Shedding extra pounds is one of the best ways to reduce osteoarthritis pain. We can put 3 to 5 times our body weight on our joints just by walking or going upstairs. For every pound we lose, we take about 3 to 5 pounds of stress off our hips, our knees, and our ankles. So losing 20 pounds could actually take 100 pounds of pressure off of our joints. Some of the best exercises are swimming, cycling, and elliptical training. Our bodies were meant to move, so find a way to stay active.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, brought to you by Atlanticare, a member of Geisinger. Call 1-888-569-1000 or visit atlanticare.org.
3, 2, 1, Happy New Year! Okay, so maybe it's August, but Lilliston Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram is extending their model year-end closeout sale.
Hi, this is Stacy Lilliston. During the summer clearance event at Lilliston Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, take advantage of super low lease payments on our best-selling models, like a 2018 Ram 1500 Express Quad Cab for just $139 a month. And it's the summer of Jeep. Lease a new 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo 4x4 for just $249 a month, or a new 2018 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Sport S for just $309 a month. It's model year and closeout time, so come on in today and get top dollar for your trade-in at Lilliston, and no reasonable offer will be denied. Lilliston Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, North 2nd Street in Millville, and online at Lilliston.com.
24 and 36 month leases, 10,000 miles per year, $2,999 down plus tax first payment. All applicable rebates with approved credit through Chrysler Capital. All costs borne by consumer. Offer ends 9/4/18.
Paul D'Amato.
Harry Hurley.
Paul, I know our listeners want to know what's new with the D'Amato Law Firm.
Things are great, Harry. We are so privileged to represent our clients whose lives have been turned upside down because they were involved in a serious accident. We meet on a regular basis. We copy our clients on all our correspondence so they always know what's going on with their case. We try to treat them like family. We have Alexa here, my daughter. I'm so happy that she's here. We have Steve Van Natten and Casey Gifford. We're a great legal team.
They're the D'Amato Law Firm for all of your personal injury legal needs. Turn to the official lead counsel to the Hurley in the Morning program for more than a quarter of a century. The D'Amato Law Firm in Egg Harbor Township, 609-926-3300. That's 609-926-3300. Tell Paul, Alexa, Sandy, the entire team that Hurley in the Morning sent you.
Hi, it's Brian Kilmeade. Join me later this morning at 10. Now back to Harry Hurley on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
The fastest 4 hours and 6 minutes in media is 3/4 of the way en route to the Smithsonian Institution into the Hall of Fame section with the minus Chuck's hour that was rejected. upon receipt. Now, it goes as well. Chuck is right here as I say that. He's laughing too. Dr. Newkirk is standing by. He is next. All about your pets, and then wide open forum for the second half of no doubt what will be a fun, informative, great hour. Jim Carney, thank you for your very kind digital communication about the content of today's program. And we'll be back. It's 9 o'clock. Fourth quarter action begins right now with Dr. Newkirk next.
WPGG Atlantic City, WENJ 97.3 HD3 Millville. Everything you need to know in 6 minutes starts now.
A former Nazi prison camp guard is kicked out of the United States. I'm Chris Foster, Fox News. There have been protests outside his home in Queens, New York, and now he's being sent to Germany.
The White House issuing a statement early today that Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents deported 95-year-old Yaki Pauli. Pauli hid his Nazi connections when he immigrated in 1949, but admitted in 2003 that he trained at a Nazi camp in Poland. A judge revoked his citizenship then and ordered him